I don't know.
Oh, started early.
Started.
Welcome. This is the product of the 80's podcast. This is Saturday, chilling, having real conversations, just sitting here today. And there was some things going on, and I've been telling people about B.R.I.C.S. We got Trump being indicted, getting quote unquote arrested, although it would have been cool to see him in cuffs, but at the same time, it would have been just people stirred up about it. But I'm Black V, your host, and I got a special co-host today, Logan Conrad, one of the realest, craziest, but authentic and smartest people I know. So we're going to have fun. We're going to talk and shoot the shits and giggles. And if you're offended by anything in this episode today, I'm sorry. I apologize to you when I'm sober and on the next episode. So first off, welcome, Logan, to the podcast. It's good to have you on, brother.
Thank you for having me. And hopefully we can have some conversations so people are interested.
Oh, they'll be interested. If they're not, we'll get a laugh out of it. So first off, we don't want to get people too much into your business, but we want to give people a little bit of your background as to what your background is. And so when we speak with some of these topics, they understand that you might be a little bit of authority, or you might not have no authority. You just speaking your damn mind on how you really feel.
Yeah, there's a lot of shit that I'll be talking out of my ass about. But, my background is I went to Bowling Green State University, got a degree in finance. I worked for a couple of large corporations in Toledo. I've lived in Iowa. I've lived in Missouri, working with these companies through different levels of
finance. How does that do with Iowa?
Golf, bet, and drink.
Shit, that sounds like Ohio.
Oh no, but they have a lot more cows and pigs.
Oh, sure.
Those are two things out there. But so I've done a lot of different finance things. I traveled to China. I've been in Europe many times, and Mexico and Canada.
So you got a treasure trove of knowledge.
Well, experience, yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we'll start off with something real easy that's going on that's crazy in the world. Do we want to go crazy, or do we want to start off easy? I feel like even though it's a big thing, I think it's a light conversation topic to have with Trump being indicted.
Okay, go there.
What, in your honest opinion, not honest opinion, your experience first. What's the first thing coming to your mind when you found out that he would get going? The first thing that ever they was we're gonna get him on was gonna be this.
It's my first impression was this has been out for how long, and they're just now getting to it.
Right.
We're just now going to get this indictment on this. Does it surprise me? Absolutely not. I mean, the guy has been out there. There's one thing about Trump, he doesn't hide anything. He kind of just throws it out there for you.
Right.
So no, not surprised at all. But I'm just surprised it took this long.
Okay. See, me, I was kind of like, I was like you, like, okay, we're just now getting to this. But I do remember when it was going on, this was such a hot topic in the beginning. It was like a lot of people just kept thinking like this is going to be something that they get him on, because it was like the evidence was so over whatever back then that he was just wrong about it or guilty about whatever. But I'm guessing now that through time, and I guess the old adage is true, it's never the actual crime that people get hemmed up on. It's always a cover-up.
Yeah.
And so I'm assuming that the cover-up of what he did is what took it from being misdemeanors to felony.
Yeah, and I think it's the way he acted and the way he talked about it, tried to brush it away. But the other thing, when you think about it, once again, this is kind of far-fetched, kind of out there, is Now, when you look at the things that have happened and when he went through his presidential campaign back in 2016,
Mhm.
you know, the immunity of the president of not being able to be prosecuted makes you wonder with some of these things that he's hiding with his business dealings and everything else. And once again, completely speculative,
Mhm.
but was he going to be president just so he could get immunity and not face any of these charges? And now that he's not president, people are coming back. Now, I think our Congress on the Democratic side
Mhm.
has spent so much time and effort to get him, but he's a media whore. He loves his name out there. He loves being heard about and talked about.
He's been-
And if you just stop talking about him, maybe.
But he doesn't want you to.
I know he
He doesn't want you
he'll
to.
do whatever he can. So, there's a lot of stuff out there. I'm not going to say I didn't vote for him. I did. I wanted to see some change in Washington, and I was hoping he was going to bring that. But it's just a different kind of scandal now.
Do you
Different kind
have
of scandal.
so from you voting? I didn't vote for him, but here's the thing. I'll be honest about it. When he first announced he was going to run, I was like, well, that's cool. That's good. Because I was like, never not going to say I was a fan of Trump, but I was like, okay, let's see something different.
Right. Right.
And then as time went on, and then certain things came out more and more, and I was like, oh man, this is not going to be. We're for a lot more than we expect. So 4 years later, after you voted for him,
Mhm.
did you feel you were like have buyer's remorse, or were you like,
No,
cool, but I'm probably not going to do it again?
I voted for him twice.
Okay.
Now, I will say I don't have buyer's remorse about putting him in office. You can talk about what he did and what he didn't do. I thought his first 2 years he did a good job. He started getting some of the economy back rolling up again. He started doing some other things, but he's one of those people that I think the more success he had, the more I can't even say his ego got bigger because his ego was already big. So it was one of those things he thought I could do anything. I could do anything. And the only thing that I shouldn't say the thing that really got me off of that was after he lost and refusing to admit that he lost. That's the thing that really started turning me off to him. I'm tired of it. I don't want to hear it anymore. I want him to go away. Just go back down to Florida. You own plenty of properties and sit out and enjoy retirement. Something we can't do as normal people.
Right. I will agree with you as far as when he got through, I was like, okay, he messed it up for himself. But I guess I've learned in the 4 years that Donald Trump is going to be Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. And what hurts Donald Trump always is Donald Trump gets in Donald Trump's way. And you watched him, and then he just couldn't keep his mouth shut. He couldn't, instead of just sitting back and letting whatever happened, negative or positive, fall on Fauci alone, he wanted to be the hero so bad. He wanted to be the face of it, like, I defeated this. I think in the beginning he didn't take it that serious, and everybody around him kept telling him. And then he wanted to take it serious, and then he felt like he was doing enough, but he couldn't. So he took, as much as there was good things he did, like speeding up and getting these things through the trials and everything else, he also was the face of all the bad things that was happening that went along with it.
Yeah, I think from my point of view that there's a lot of good things he did with that. He did, and he faced criticism at the time of saying, "Hey, let's shut everything down." Mm-hmm. We did that. We shut the flights down. We tried to contain it. Tried to do whatever. We shut the economy down. We passed the stimulus, which has led to more problems. But we can talk about that later.
Right.
But what I think when I look at a leader. And what happened during the pandemic was a mishandling of what he could have done. Mm-hmm. He could have not been so, I don't even know the right word, but any misinformation or trying to say, don't do this or don't do that. He kind of seemed like he just wanted to go a different path.
Right.
He wouldn't ever want to follow his path. Instead of being calm about things, and trying to get people to settle down, he just wanted to go forward and kept trying to push an agenda or his own agenda. And I don't think that was necessarily right. I don't know what the right thing to do during that time frame. That was unprecedented. What happened, shutting the whole world down like that. but I don't think he helped his own situation out by
I
creating
agree.
some sort of us against them. Those people want this, and let's not do that. It was more of a time of everybody, let's get on the same page.
Right.
Let's get through this,
Right.
and the faster we get on the same page and figure this out, we can get through it.
Right.
But yeah, getting the vaccine through and help companies. Yeah, I agree. They did a great job with that. But contradicting, if you're going to have a team, if you're a leader and you're going to have a team member like Fauci, you cannot contradict him in the same meeting.
Right.
That's not what leaders do.
No.
Leaders, now you can go afterward and talk to him and say, "Hey, I really need you to do this," but you can't have two different opposing views at the same thing. And then what it did was, not that our country wasn't already divided, between left and right. It just made it even worse.
And then he started to divide it. He started to put a divide even within amongst his own followers or his party. So then it became you're either with Trump, and if you're not with Trump, but you claim you're a Republican, then you're a rhino. They tried to separate it like that, and so I felt that he did. Here's what I feel. Trump, he showed me that the positives I feel is that he showed me that there's through all the bureaucracy, if a president wants to get something done, there are ways about he can go to, if he truly wanted to get done, he can get it done.
Yep.
That's what he showed me, which was like, okay, it was cool, which a lot of people voted for him because they wanted that. He also showed me he's a horrible leader and he's about self.
Yes.
He's about self and self-preservation and his best interest, and knows he needs or wants things from their interest above everybody else's. If you're so happy to benefit from his choices, cool, and whatever the case, but it's really about how can I benefit for me.
Yeah.
So that was the what I learned through the 4 years and even through this time, that Trump is about Trump. And it's always going to be about Trump first and foremost. Make America Great Again is, I love my country, but I'm also a realist. I like to try to pride myself in it. Yeah. If I'm going to say I love America, that means I also have to still love America with all its faults. Mm-hmm. It's like being married to somebody who's got a whole bunch of issues, but you still love that person, but you love them with their faults too. Yeah. And to keep it real, we a crazy ass country and we got a wild past. America continues to do, is responsible for a lot of fucked up shit in the world. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that like I hate my country. I can just be real about the country that I love. And understanding my country has faults and we're working to be better. And the cool part about this melting pot, this country, is that those who come here wanted to succeed. We have different ideas about how we wanted to succeed, but we do. So when you say make America great again, it makes me look back to like, okay, so what era were we great?
Right.
What do you want to say, the 50s and 60s or before then, where women didn't have rights and they were still treated like property, segregation and everything else, and we dealt with different plagues and not plagues, but different other things we went through with the polio and all those things. So America is great and is great at many things, good and bad.
Right. Right. And and I don't necessarily have a problem with this slogan, because every politician is going to come up with that slogan to try and ramp up the enthusiasm for his campaign and make it great, make a great America great. Yeah, let's go do this. But the way I look at it, and I look at America, is we are a huge dysfunctional family. Yes. We got crazy uncles, we got aunts, we got the cousin that you don't really want to acknowledge, but it's there. Right. We got all of these different things because we got all different nationalities, we got all different races. Where you look at a lot of the other countries, they don't have this. Right. So it's not easy to get along. It's not easy to what you said, melting pot. It's not easy to get everyone in there. But at the same time, that's what makes it great, is you get all these perspectives and you get all of this stuff, that ideas, and how do we meld all of this together to come up with a better society? And we got the opportunity. We have the opportunity because there isn't another country. If you traveled abroad, there's not a lot of countries that are as free for people to go do things and to participate in things and all of that.
Keep talking. Keep
You have
talking.
power?
No, I'm not about to be. I didn't plug it in. Keep talking. Keep talking.
So I think, you know, from my standpoint, we just, every family has its problems. Like you were saying, every family has different quirks that don't work and do work. And you just got to say, okay, I understand it. I get it. Now let's move forward and figure out how we can work with that. How can we work with this?
Yeah.
How can we do that? And I think what we've got now is we've got media, social media, all these other things that are never there that try to divide people. They try to divide people. Not
sure. Social media now is like an asshole, right? Everybody's got one, and everybody's of course going to spew their shit through it.
Right. And there's no repercussion. I can say whatever I want. I can, you know, we got people who text someone now and say, "You're a jerk. I hate you. Why don't you go?" And it's like, well, if you were saying that, if you were right in front of my face, would you say no? Because I don't want to be in front of your face, but I can text you. And I can post it on social media, and I think that's where the social media kind of gets in with all the things that are happening with the kids. Is they're exposed to these things that, you know, obviously we were never exposed to when we were growing up. Because you know, talk to my kids. It's like, hey, when I wanted to find out if Johnny was home, I had to get on my bike and go over there, knock on the door. I couldn't just say, hey, what are you doing?
Well, he's coming outside. Rode all the way over there. Mom, like, he's not allowed outside. He's gonna punish me.
Oh, he's grounded. Well, what do you mean grounded? Yeah, absolutely. And it's different. I mean, there's a lot of human element that's taken out of it that, you know, kind of scares me. But you know what? I could say the same thing to my grandma, and she'd probably go, "Well, I was scared when you were doing this." And I don't know. I mean, everything kind of morphs from there. And I think, you know, while I say in one vein that it scares me that there's social media out there, the other thing is when you live in a society where you're able to discuss all these things.
Yes.
And there's no government coming down to find you, or well, they might be. They're probably listening anyhow. We know China's listening because we got an Apple phone. But, the thing about it is we're able to have these discussions. You can figure it out. If you can't have discussion, you can't figure it out.
It's weird. We have all this communication and technology that's supposed to bring us closer together, but I feel like all it's done is just push us further apart. And when I get it, I'm the biggest. Here's my thing, and this is me across the board. I'm very big on rights. Okay, and so sometimes on certain arguments that puts me on one side, and sometimes on arguments, depends on who's having an argument, it puts me on the other side. So I'm the guy who I can tell you I honestly disagree with abortion, right? But I'm for people having the right to choose what they want to do with their body. Go get whatever you want to do. You got to answer for it, whether it's spiritually or you got to, as long as I don't have to pay for you to have an abortion, do what you want to do. Because if I'm truly a spiritual person, I know it's not up to me to decide whether you're getting into hell or hell any damn way. Or you want to choose. Yeah.
God's going to make that decision.
Hey, that's between you and God.
You know, that's a difficult topic because at the same time, I agree with you. I wouldn't necessarily want a child to be aborted, and I think it's a life. One of the arguments I hate at this time, specifically with the coronavirus, was, well, you're not going to listen to science. Well, science tells me a heartbeat means something's alive. Now, all kinds of disagreements will happen on this. I don't know, we'll probably have it off this podcast, but you know, I'm not going to take your right away to do that.
Right.
It's like gun ownership. You know, I don't have a gun. I don't want a gun. But at the same time, I am not going to tell somebody else you can't have a gun. Now, should there be different?
Should we have more not holes to jump through, better regulations or better checkpoints for people to go through to gain access to these weapons? Should there be, especially if you're going to high caliber type of weaponry, should there be more that a person has to do to go through, and more things so they become even more responsible gun owners, to where there's more things you could be held liable for if a weapon you purchase is used. Right. Something to make people have to also be responsible gun owners and not just go buy guns, because there are people who buy guns and just sell them to whoever.
Yeah. I mean, and that's not right. I mean, once again, this is such a hard topic because there's both sides that you're going to come on, and I can say, yeah, I understand your point, but I also understand their point, and you got two sides. But what I don't understand is okay, I get it, but make them go through a psychological evaluation of yourself.
Yeah.
But the other thing I look at is how many of some of the type of the gun owners, or I should say gun owners, the people who've committed these atrocities, were they the actual gun owner? Did they get the gun from someone else? Did they go through the registration process? I don't know. We know what the media tells us, and let me just be honest in my thoughts. My opinion on this is the media. I lived through Columbine.
Mm-hmm.
Columbine was the first thing you ever heard of these types of school shootings,
yeah.
And it was on for months. And now every time something happens, the media just holds on to it and talks about it. And so now are you getting kids who are thinking, well, I can be famous, or I can, everyone's going to understand my pain. And I don't know their pain. So don't get me wrong. I don't understand
the
their
girl
pain.
or the guy. I'm going to be respectful to that's another topic, but I'm respectful to how they identify themselves. The young man is wanted to be identified by, expressed that they were going to be talked about and everything after they done it.
Yeah.
Like they wanted the attention to do it, and the attention that went along with it. To me, that's the part that sucks. But I guess we're both. This is why I like talking to you. I think we're both along the same thing. We're not about infringing upon people's rights, but we are about holding people accountable and responsibility, being responsible. And so I'll say to you, it's mental health is one of the most disregarded. The biggest, to me, it's like if America has issues, our seriousness and our approach to dealing with mental health in this country we so disregard it or do not pay enough attention to it as we need to.
I think there's a stigma about people who seek mental health and seek someone to help them, someone they can talk to, and then someone they can help understand what they're trying to go through.
Right.
And what you get in the social media is, you're going to get, I'm on Instagram, I'm going to get 10,000 people who understand, but I'm going to get 30,000 people who want to shout hate. And this might come off wrong, but when you put yourself out there,
you're going to take the good side. Yes, you're going to
and so if you make that choice to put yourself out there, there's going to be some issues. Now, should you get hate? No. But that's the society we live in. So you got to understand. And then when the younger kids get in there, I don't know that they completely understand that, and they don't understand that there's not everyone's good. Not everyone wants to have a good time. Not everyone wants to just hey, let's go have fun. They want to knock people down, and it's very difficult to understand that when you're younger. It's very difficult until you run against it.
Yeah.
And I think it's more prevalent now because you can see it. When I was growing up, I hung around my friends and we did stuff and we had great times, but we didn't expose ourselves to a lot of this that they're on. So, but I want to get back to your mental health.
My kids say it all the time. It's different because they have this technology and they have it, and so they communicate it. The way they communicate is different. I don't know. I'm like you. I mean, we're not that far apart in age, so I grew up where I don't get internet bullied. I mean, I got real life bullied. I got bullied in real life. It wasn't somebody posted something and then everybody laughed. It was like, no, somebody did something to me in front of everybody, and everybody's laughing right there in real time.
Yeah.
And so
it's different. But the mental health aspect of it, I think, it's one of those things we're going to have to evolve on.
Yeah.
With the healthcare system and how we counsel kids and how available they are to, because what you're seeing is a lot less. I don't know if maybe this isn't true. I don't know stats, but I think you're seeing a lot less broken bones, and a lot more broken egos.
Broken egos, broken,
because of all the stuff they're not out doing, all the stuff we used to do. Trying to learn to ride a bike is a horrendous experience because you're going to fall down and you get hurt.
Oh, don't
all
do
the
that.
time.
Traumatized.
And what do they tell you? Get back on that bike. Come on, let's go. Get back on the bike. You can't learn. But it's kind of different with the mental health because
No, I'm sorry.
No, go.
I was going to ask you a question along that. Where are we as a society, because this is still relatively new, when every time something happens, there's the over thing of it, it goes and as everybody's trying and everybody's losing their mind over it. And then when all the bad happens, then we over police it. And then it finally settles down, and for most cases, it kind of finds a medium, and it kind of rides away when it all set. But we kind of just ride along with it, smooths out on this journey. I hope that maybe with social media and everything, that's where we're at. But I mean, we're both old enough to where we grew up with when computers really becoming a thing in the households. But we also can remember our parents and even our grandparents, like, oh, I'm not getting on that computer or whatever case. Now turn around and my parents be all over Facebook and everything. Now they used to swear all up against it and everything else. Now they be on it. My stepdad be on it all the time. He know how to work damn social media better than I do. Oh, there we go. She did. She said we being too politically correct.
Okay. Logan needs to come out. It's time to. There. Once again, the changing times. It's always. Cheers. Yeah. Cheers.
Thank you.
Wow. Wasn't ready for that. It's a different kind.
What is that, Maker's Mark?
No, it's called Cincinnati.
Oh, that's the Cincinnati one.
Yeah, I never had it till last week.
That's pretty good.
But with the changing times, it's just how you got to evolve and how you figure a lot of this stuff out. And I think, like you said, there's adjustment periods. Yeah. There's always an adjustment period. Yeah. But the problem right now is it moves so fast. The adjustment period has to be quicker. And when we say I love to talk with my great grandmother. So it's my grandma's. She's gonna turn 95 this month.
Oh man.
And I just think about she was born in 1927 through the Great Depression and all the way through, and I try and think about, okay, what has she seen all the way through? And you start talking about all the new things that have come along. And, you got to kind of step back a moment from your own life and go.
Before the microwave, like she's from before a lot of things that have come along. Like wow.
Yeah, and so you got to kind of take a step back and say, okay, I know where I'm at this point in history. Now let's talk about history. Let's see where we were, what happened in the last 100 to 150 years. And you look at the advancements that have made in 150 years. That's just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Of what we've been able to do. And you think how we've been able to keep up. Huh?
Do you think we peaked and we're stagnant? That's a two-way. Let's say that one, because that's actually a two-point thing, because that comes along the lines of probably when we talk about BRICS. I think that'll play.
I want to talk about something real quick because you got me on this thought, and I can't remember where I saw it. I saw it probably 20 years ago, and I didn't give it much thought, but it gets in my mind a lot more. I read a little piece of it as an article that said something about every democracy lasts about 300 years.
Okay.
And when they come through at the very beginning with the revolution, they start the ideas, things, everything's good and everyone in the country prospers and everything goes through. But as they get longer and longer, there's more complacency because they're used to everyone's voice being heard. Right. So at the very end, everyone starts saying, instead of everyone going, what can I do to help this country get better? All of a sudden you get to, why isn't this country doing more stuff for me? And so I keep thinking in today's age, that's what I hear a lot. Well, why don't I get more of this? Why don't I get more of this? And it's not about, okay, well, what are you doing to advance it? It's more about, why isn't someone helping me get there? Yeah. And I read that article 20 years ago, and once again, younger, I didn't give it much thought. But now as we get into a lot more of where our society's going,
it's the stuff you heard younger, then somehow the relevancy.
Oh, that was bullshit. That was bullshit. And now you can think like, those little people are smart. They're smart. They knew what they were talking about.
How do we? Well, okay, so we both can agree that there were some positives, and of course there was some negatives for Trump. Yep. So we both can agree that. So we can move on past the Donald and his indictment and everything else, and we can come into I guess we ventured into the microwave generation. He's guilty. Oh yeah, he's guilty. He's probably guilty on most of the stuff they got on him. Like, but you're like, yo, sometimes I respect it as gangster. I'm like, we gangster as hell the way he pulled it out. Like with the Mueller investigation, like you get to pick the guy that goes and determine if what Mueller put together can be used to get like, bro, that's some mastermind, smooth criminal shit.
And then he's talking about all the money that this country spent on to come up with nothing.
To come up with nothing. But they came up with something. But his guy.
But they knew they couldn't indict him.
They couldn't. That is a waste of money. You're right. Because if you know you can't indict him, and then you know that you're not going to get the votes needed to impeach him, then yes, it was a waste of money. You're right.
But that's been my biggest thing is the Democrats did the right thing in this last election. They ran on a platform of we got to get rid of Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And there were enough people who were.
That's the only reason Biden won.
Yeah. Because once he got in, and what I noticed was they didn't have a platform.
No.
It became, we're going to undo what Trump did. We're going to do that. And then he did. And he put the executive orders out there and he did it. But then there was like, okay, now what do we do? And
Joe Biden would have never won.
But they're still going after him because that's all they had.
Well, what I will give them props on is this. And I've learned in life, and I'll be honest, when I was younger, I was ignorant and know better. I used to be like, well, I'm a Democrat. Didn't even know why I was a Democrat. Just like I'm a Democrat. And then some things they stood on, it was like, okay, I can agree to that. But then I also, and I think a lot of our people, Black people, don't realize that by our upbringing, the way we were raised, we are probably more conservative and more Republican than we like. Our values are more or less align more side the Republican side. But then I educated myself even more, and I was taught that the Democrats really aren't they're not really of this united party. It's just a whole bunch of coalitions that just come together for like, yo, it's better if we all work together so we can be the majority to accomplish what we need to get done.
Right.
So I watched it, but what I will say is this: neither side technically has. Back to what you said, the Democratic side are just as bad as the Republican side. They don't really have a platform to run on. No, it's all just surrounded by Donald Trump.
What's going to get me elected?
What's going to get me elected, and what's going to keep me in power?
And it's on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just the Democrats.
It's on both sides. It's just they both don't think. I remember the Republicans were dead in the water after when Obama was in office. They were dead in the water. They were like trying to find themselves, trying to find an identity.
Yep,
they were struggling so bad. They were trying to push forward. Even was it Herman Cain? Before they were trying to push him as the party leader for a minute.
He was trying. Yeah, he was trying to get in there, and I always look back and think Mitt Romney ran at the wrong time.
Mm-hmm.
He ran at the wrong time. But yeah, they didn't have an identity, and then Trump gave them an identity. Mm-hmm. And I think they latched on to it because they had, here's a guy who's forceful. He seems to be polling well. He won the presidency. Let's go with it. And I guess my biggest issue is when I start talking about, and the candidates in the last two elections, how can this be the best this country has to offer?
We should be ashamed of ourselves.
I sit there and I look at it. I didn't vote for Obama. I didn't really want him in office, but at the same time, he didn't do a bad job. Didn't do a bad job. I don't agree with everything.
And Trump,
but you never will.
No, and so about it. As much as Trump hated him, he can never deny. He actually admitted it because they caught him in an interview, and he was like, the economy was doing good, and the biggest thing they told him was like, "Yo, you can take credit for it, just don't fuck it up."
Yeah.
It was already on the rise, and the jobs and everything else was going, whatever case. They was like, listen, it normally works that way. The president before, by the time this stuff is enacted, if it's good stuff, you're going to get all the credit. The bad part about it, if it's bad stuff, you're going to get all the credit. And that's what happened. All he had to do was come in, and he did it for the most part until COVID.
He started messing up when he put the tariffs with China. When he started that with China, that was the first time I saw anything where I thought, okay, that probably wasn't what you should have done.
Okay, so going into this, you're taking us into the next conversation. So continue on, because the tariffs, and I think a lot of Americans are like, yeah, a businessman. He's going to get us the best deal. And the people who really knew was like, yo, you keep thinking China's paying for these tariffs.
They're not.
They're not.
No.
It's we're paying for these tariffs.
So you know, there's a lot of things that when you talk about economics that they don't like to talk about. The ugly little truths about what's really going on in this country in the past so many years. Everyone loves Walmart. You know why Walmart can be in existence? Because they're getting cheap goods from China, India, and all the rest. So you're paying for that because that's what you want as a consumer of goods. You want low price.
Right.
The only way to keep those prices low is to go to a low cost country. So what has fueled a lot of this is our demand for cheaper and cheaper goods. Because at the end of the day, you're going to pay, if you're making T-shirts, you're going to pay someone in California $22 an hour to do it, and you're going to pay someone $3 an hour to do it in Laos. So who are you going to choose?
You're going to go with them
because you're going to go with profit.
Yeah.
And you want to make fun of the corporations and say that they're greedy, they're doing all these things, but at the same time, you demand cheaper and cheaper goods, and there's only one way to do that. And so there's a lot of interrelated, and I could go on and on about different things.
Yeah, but it's always our fault. And we don't realize the role we play. We fuss about these things, but we don't realize the role we play.
It's all interconnected, and we don't understand all the links. It's kind of like when one of the big things that happened, they talked about the Reagan economy, and the stock market has blown up since the 70s. Well, there's a reason that blew up. It's called the 401k. When the pension funds stopped and the Congress enacted the plan for the 401k, what happens is every company contributes some, the employees contribute some. They go to these mutual funds who are dictated by their structures that they have to buy certain types of stocks, bonds, money market, whatever that mutual fund is built around. They have to buy those.
Okay.
And so they get all this money every week. What do they got to do? They got to buy. So if you understand the ups and downs of the stock market, it's all demand. If you have money that you have to put in there, you have to buy something no matter what, it goes in and that pushes prices up. So from the early 80s when these things started, all this money starts flowing in through mutual funds because of the 401k. And it just kept shooting this market up and up and up. So when people start talking about, why is the market so important? The market is important, and it became about because of the 401ks.
Damn.
The pension funds before could pick and choose, and it was in the background. And they did all this shit, and you didn't know about it. Now the 401ks, I got to report to you what I'm doing. I got to tell the public what I'm doing because I'm a publicly regulated company. I got to tell you what I'm buying. And all of a sudden, guess what happens? Now, the government comes back to bonuses for executives and says, you can't just pay them $30 million a year. It has to be tied to performance. So these public companies, what do they tie performance to? Stock price. So now all this money's flowing into a mutual fund. They got to buy something. If I'm not somehow inflating my stock price, they're not going to want to buy it. So now I'll do whatever I have to do to get that stock price up.
Right.
So that people keep buying it. It's all supply and demand. And when all this stuff starts shooting up, now you got executives making $100 million a year. Disney, Bob Iger, he's making $130 million a year because all of his performance is tied to how the stock was doing and was doing great because he kept pushing good numbers too. Mutual funds kept buying and just kept shooting the price up. Who wants to sell? So in a way, the government regulations helped fuel the stock market and helped fuel the corporate bonus structures that are going on. Sorry,
No. These is why we're here. These are informative things, and this is why I'm loving this, bro. We gotta create something like real, because I think these type of conversations are extremely needed, because there's a lot of miseducation, a lot of misinformation out there, and people are running around or not getting the whole story. And so I would have never thought about before. I've heard it before in another podcast, but I wouldn't. It was Valuetainment. I would listen to them talk. And I don't know if you've ever watched that one.
This is the first podcast I've ever done or looked at. So
okay, well,
you're busting my cherry. Right?
Hey man, listen.
Can I say that on your podcast?
Listen, you can say it. I'll go eat. Are we gentle?
Very, very gentle.
We gentle.
I might cry.
It's okay. I'll hold you afterwards. I'll console you. I'll hold you and say, there. Wasn't that bad? Yeah, next time we'll be somebody. Next time we'll be somebody. I'm just gonna take that shit. The words of P. Diddy, take that.
Well, I'm gonna leave that to my wife.
I understand.
Somebody, you gotta get pegged every so often.
Hey, every now and then, listen. What they say is not gay if you don't make eye contact. Yeah, that's
it's never gay. 3.
So let's go bricks.
Let's go bricks.
Let's go bricks.
Okay, no throwing bricks though.
As long as we don't throw them at each other, I mean, I don't care who's throwing them. But leave your gate unlocked, and then I'll just come take some, and then we won't never.
I'll take it home. Anyhow, let's talk about what you want to talk
about. Okay, so let's go bricks, because bricks, it all comes back to what you were just talking about. BRICS, for those that don't know what the acronym stands for, it stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and they have just like the LGBTQ. Now they have a plus too. There is BRICS plus now.
Oh well, yeah, it's BRICS plus because there's more emerging markets.
There's more emerging
BRICS
markets.
Came out in the 90s.
I did not know that until I was doing my research. And we're like, this whole thing, they were working on this a long time, which is crazy. And I'm gonna come to you and finally think. But what I learned was this was going on for a while. And if you take a step back and you watch, and then you look at the certain moves that Russia and China has been making, they've been doing and influencing, interfering in things in America with the specific purpose of they've grown confidence enough to push forward even further with this BRICS agenda. And so when you look back and you say, yo, Russia interfering in American elections, if anything, to cause certain things to come into play. When you look at BRICS and what they're trying to do and the moves they want to make, it makes, and I can see why the American government doesn't talk about BRICS or has a media talk about it as much, because they don't want to help build into the frenzy of it and send everybody into a frenzy. And next thing you know, motherfuckers help China and Russia, and they start pulling their money. Yeah.
There's BRICS isn't so much of an organization as it was a concept.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go to the emerging markets, and the next 4 emerging markets were Brazil, Russia, India, and China, for one reason and one reason only: population.
Mm-hmm. 40% of the population.
It's like 36 or something, but 40, close enough, round up. So there's a couple things when you look at Russia and you look at Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about resources.
Right.
Resources. When we talk in India and you talk in China, the resources are people. Human people that are the resources. They have tons and tons and tons. Brazil does as well, and so does Russia. But Russia is just, when you look at the Russia-Ukraine thing, this is about resources.
Right.
It's about resources, and that's it. The reason Hitler invaded Russia was because he needed oil out of the Black Sea. So that's the only reason he went to, well, it wasn't the only reason.
No, there was,
the bigger reason he needed oil. It's why Japan attacked us in World War II. They wanted to get the Philippines, get the rubber and the oil so they could keep going. And they thought if they could take out our fleet, it'd be 2 or 3 years before we could come back and they could establish themselves there. It didn't take us that long, and we surprised them. But anyhow, when you start talking about those, plus they were low-cost countries.
Right. You
get the labor for cheap, and so Russia, when you start talking about the influence of Russia and China has, and I will say this as someone who's been there, they are more materialistic than you would believe. They have the shopping malls, they have all of these things, and their consumers are getting more and more used to having things. And their government is not a strict. When we think of communism, it's not exactly what it is, but they control it.
Right.
So that's the part of communism that's still there. But it's a very consumer-driven society, and they're getting used to more and more, and their wages are going up. But the big thing is the communist government wants influence, and that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to now take the money that they've been getting and use it in other areas of Asia because they want to be the United States.
Yes.
They want to have that sphere of influence where everyone comes to them. Yeah. And they're trying to do that in Africa as well.
And they took the American. I don't want to go back to Trump, But this is the one thing why I say, which I hate it, because everybody like, oh, he's a businessman. You don't run a country like a business. You can't, because you have to spend money. Okay, businessman walks in. I don't even think I think we're on the same page still.
Yeah,
I do too. Yeah. A businessman runs in and looks into the department of, what the hell did we just go? Pandemics, right?
Yeah.
And the businessman walks in and said, why are we spending billions of dollars on this department of pandemics and we haven't used it in like 20, 30 years? Businessman says, cut that department. We don't need it. Cut the budget. We don't need it. Why are we spending all this money for bases overseas? We haven't had a war in forever, whatever the case. Why are we giving so and so much? Why are we paying more than NATO than everybody else? Cut it, cut it, cut it, cut it, cut it, cut it, cut it. Then he goes and he wants to slash it because he's just a numbers guy. He's thinking, if I make the numbers look good, he like Bob Iger, if I make the numbers look good, these people are going to love me even more than whatever case. And but the reason I say a country can't be a business, because when it comes to countries, the winning strategy, the thing that made America come across so great, is that we aren't afraid to spend the money to have the number one thing we need most, is the influence and the control.
Mm-hmm.
So because that allows us to go, when necessary, to go flex our muscles, or tell you because your country become dependent upon that American aid. Yo, we need to do this, or so and so is here, or we need to fly our planes out of here. You tell us no, we're pulling this. NATO, no, we don't like this. You're going to side with us on this and what we want to do. And if you don't, we'll pull our money.
Yep. And so here's the ugliest truth you're ever going to hear about this. Why? Why do we have to have that sphere of influence? Why are we so intent on going into these places and doing these?
Because the world, as much as we like to think it works on an honor system and everybody will respect, it doesn't. It's a dirty, dirty world, and we still have human beings always going to have that conquer mentality. And if we don't do it, somebody else is going to do it.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't believe that's true.
Okay.
I believe wholeheartedly it's because our businesses are international. If we don't support our businesses of trying to take over all the other companies out there and be the best, that's what influencers are. Our government runs on donors. Our political parties run on donors, and they are all donated by corporations. Personal people do donate, and they donate a lot, but it's corporations that donate to all these parties.
So you say
they get their interest. It's the business interest that our government protects. Why? It used to be communism. That was what we can protect against.
We always needed to.
What happened after 1990 when the wall fell down?
We didn't care about communism. So are you saying my thought process in an archaic way? Yes, my thought process is more archaic compared to the way that things have shifted in today's society.
Who controls the world?
Corporations.
Money. Yeah. And they control Congress.
Right.
At the end of the day, they donate the money for all these. And so I want to take a simple, very simple instance from our stimulus packages, and this is just the government money. Mm-hmm. When the stimulus started coming out, and then they started giving money for children, we didn't need it, but we weren't asked whether we wanted it or not. We were sent a check.
Right.
But we were sent a check. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What happened when the very first stimulus came out? You went online and you had it directed to your bank account. So instead, what they started doing was sending out letters telling you, spending money to send letters out telling you you're going to get stimulus, and then they sent physical checks. Great. Why are we doing all that when you already have my bank information? Now let's go back. Trusted you enough to put your social security number in to get all that. But when it comes to voting, we'll just mail in ballots. You just put a secure system out there for me to go get my money. Why can't I have a secure system where I could vote from my computer? Why? These things don't make sense to me. I may be stupid, and I'll be the first to raise my hand.
I don't think
there's so many.
I think these are intelligent questions.
Why aren't we doing that? You start talking about our healthcare system. Why is our health? Everyone wants to complain about Europe, and they get free, blah, blah. They pay a lot more in taxes than we get, flat out, 50% taxes. Are we going to pay 50% taxes? Hell no. We raise health. They pay that. They don't think twice because they get education and they get healthcare for free. That's why they get that stuff.
Yes, but we don't. We're too. We
It's way off topic.
No. We'll come back. We can do what the hell we want to do. This is our show. Okay, so I'm agreeing with you wholeheartedly, and I have this argument, and I have some very conservative coworkers that I work with, and other friends and stuff that people I interact with, and I'm like, yo, like you should not complain about the fact. I'd rather have to pay higher taxes if it's going to give us accountability to the spending we do in education and healthcare. I'm all for it. If it's going to give it, I don't care. They're like, no, I don't want to pay for somebody else. You're paying for it anyways with your taxes.
Hold on. Here's the first thing that most Americans don't understand about taxes.
Okay.
Do they really understand where the government gets their money?
No, they don't.
They think they print it,
right? Which
they do, which is technically correct. But they get it from collecting taxes from people who are working.
Mm-hmm.
Now let me ask another question.
Right.
I've got my mother and my grandmother on Social Security. Why is that taxed?
Because they want to get. The government is a government. I get it. Okay, so can we be? Let me be an asshole and think like I'm the government, right? So if I'm the government, it makes perfect sense for me to do it.
It does. But what you're saying with the Social Security program is, I've collected money from you for 40 years, and I'm going to give it back to you. But I'm going to tax you on it.
Yeah.
But you already got taxed on it.
Mm-hmm. From double taxation.
Double taxation.
Yeah.
Isn't that one of the things that we don't know?
Yeah. But there's some amendment or some whatever bullshit that's there.
But there's all kinds of these little things out there that, I've talked to people who don't understand where the government gets their money. They completely don't understand where the government doesn't sell a product.
No.
They don't. All they have is they collect taxes.
Yes. That's why people are frustrated as hell. So I liked it better when I was ignorant. When I didn't know no better. When I was like these people,
sometimes it gets frustrating.
When you learn things, it becomes very, very frustrating. And if you don't watch it, you can get a defeated attitude because you start to learn how the system goes. And then you even sometimes with understanding things, you understand that these are necessary evils, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes, yes, this is the devil, but you need to be a lot more weary of the devil that can come into play if this devil was in here. Without taxation of people crying about it for the roads, right? Okay, so you take it away, so they're private companies now. So that means they can charge what the hell they want to charge.
They put private jails in. What are those really doing?
Not a goddamn thing. No, but they don't see it. These people don't see it because all they keep thinking about is like, so yeah, you're going to pay money, but instead of you paying this percentage and your money's going to this, and this, now you're having to come out of your pocket because now the government's not taxing you for it. So when you want to go up and down the road, every damn thing could be a turnpike. To get home every goddamn day, you could be paying turnpike fee. Well,
right. They're going to get it. So think about the states that don't have income tax. Florida, Tennessee. Everyone's like, I'm going to go someplace that doesn't have income tax. Yeah, what's their sales tax?
High.
Why? Because the government is going to get their money.
Yes. One way or the other.
Whether they take it from sales or they take it from your income tax, they're going to get the same amount of money.
Yes.
They all need to be funded.
Yes.
And so the question becomes, how do you fund it? I am in favor of a flat tax. I'm in favor.
I'm agreeing with you.
You know what? If you're going to charge me 20%, charge me 20%. Take it on my. I don't want to submit tax forms again.
Right.
You know what? It's 20%. Just pay it.
Pay it.
There's no loopholes. There's no loopholes. And you know what? By the way, government, you're complaining about the rich getting through the loopholes. Who made the loopholes? Government.
Because they were all bought out. All these lobbyists, like corporations, again, controlling the world, like everything. We somehow allowed. We broke. I see what it wasn't Eisenhower. Who was it? Was it broke up monopolies?
Oh, geez. Back in the day, it was Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt. Woodrow Wilson helped out too.
Okay.
He's the one that finally got Stanford.
So we go through all that, and then we turn around, and they just through years, through time, just slowly went back to we live in a monopoly. I hear it's 4 corporations that control 80% of the world's, not just the U.S., the world's food supply. with 4 major companies, and General Mills is like the biggest, one of the biggest ones. They own.
General Mills?
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
I
like
didn't know that.
yeah, they own because they own a lot of these food companies, and what they do is through them, it's all like not shell sub companies,
Shell companies, so, yeah,
yeah,
holding companies.
holding companies, right? But there's like one owner. Like, wait, no, it's still recorded.
All right.
I don't know. It might be just the internet, but we're still saying we're live.
Okay.
So there we go. So what it happens is they control it because they also control a lot of things that goes on with the farmers, with buying of the grain and different things like that. And this is like not just local, not just a U.S. problem. This is a world problem. I didn't realize like is it Daimler or Daimler? They used to own Chrysler or whatever the case. Daimler. Well, they still own a part of Chrysler.
They own Fiat.
They own Fiat. They own a part of Fiat. They own a part of, they're like almost, they have holdings still. They may not be the majority owners, but they have a nice chunk of ownership in almost every auto manufacturer.
So do you know who the largest automobile manufacturer is?
Isn't it? It's not Volkswagen. It was Volkswagen? Oh, man. But you wouldn't think
they go under so many different.
Yes. Yeah. And so you're looking like nobody drives a V-Dub. Well, yeah, you don't drive a V-Dub, but you're still driving something that Volkswagen owns.
And so I don't necessarily have an issue with a lot of those things. I get into more of, when it becomes a public, once again, this would be a topic that we could go on for hours, but insulin versus Narcan. I could go on and on about those two things.
Mm-hmm.
You hear the stories of people who've been resuscitated twice by Narcan, yet we can't get insulin for all the diabetics around here. Right. And it's like, why? The insulin was invented, and I get these drug companies, they put a lot of money into developing drugs and they get these drugs. But at the same time, they did this 50, 60 years ago. They paid for that research.
Yes.
Bring the price. These people need this to live.
Well, I heard rumor, and I want to pull the source, and I could pull it up, but I don't care right now to pull it up. That they actually have something that works very well, that you wouldn't even need insulin no more. They have a drug now. Yeah. The same thing with HIV. They have this thing. Same thing. They actually have. Yeah. Rumor has it that there is actually a cure that doesn't kill all cancer, but can take care of most cancers, and that they can't release it because of the impact it will have. Think about how many hospitals have whole huge buildings and wings, and college and everything else surrounded strictly by cancer. Our government, not just our government, our world reacts off of negative and positive. Like, you need crime. You know how much crime and crime prevention is a part of our economy. Like, just like these things, like with drugs, we need drugs in this country. You know how many people have jobs who whether you're the therapist, or you have the treatment center, or you make the drug that you make Narcan, or you're researching finding other things to help it. It's like, we need drugs. All the police officers who work specifically to combat drugs, we need it. You almost have to, like, in a sensible way, let it get in. We don't want to fix it in problems because we're a capitalist society. So we found ways to make money off of it. Hence, and tell me if I'm wrong. Remember, the biggest issue every president would run off back in the 90s and the 80s, welfare. Okay? Everybody was like, oh, we're going to end welfare. Oh, we're going to such and such welfare. Until their constituents finally wised up, because the other people who helped push welfare through understood it and knew that they can make money off it. The average person, the regular people, finally got hip to it. So all those guys who was rural areas and everything else hated it, so they start saying, wait a second, so you mean to tell me I can go in these neighborhoods and buy a house for $10,000 and charge $800 in rent for it, These people can't afford it because they ain't got no jobs and everything, and they can get on welfare and government assistance, and the government is going to pay $750 of that rent, and all that person has to pay me is $50. Then they started being like, and all I got to do is keep the house up to this minimal standards, and the government really doesn't give a damn. They stopped crying about welfare. And here's another thing I didn't know. Them same people, and no disrespect, because I work with a lot of people who farm, but always just cry about getting government handouts. Half you motherfuckers is on welfare. They come from the same damn fund.
There is a lot. Once the Farm Aid went through, if you remember those big Farm Aid concerts and all that, there are a lot of subsidies that go to farmers. I knew, I knew a guy when I was in Iowa that was paid not to farm.
I heard about the people like, no, you'll produce, it'll be too much.
As long as he has so many trees on his property. And then the government will come back and say, okay, we don't want those trees on his property. I actually helped him cut down trees and pull trees out because the government was dictating what his property had to look like to get there.
Yes.
And you know what he did every time? Right off. And you can sit there and say that's bullshit, but government sanctioned it.
Yep.
He followed the letter of the law.
Yep.
He didn't do anything wrong. And we could go. We could talk about welfare. I think it's a systematic way to keep people in a spot. I think we've grown. My biggest thing, and this isn't just it's just a policy issue. When we start talking about these things, is the government cries about I don't have enough people to do things.
Right.
And our welfare system is meant to hand out a check and help people out. But it's bullshit. Help people out by getting them an education or training them.
Yes.
When you hand someone money and that's all you hand them, they don't get out of it. You got it. So all these things they can't get to, give them jobs. Train them how to do those things. You're paying them, you're giving them money anyhow, pay them a wage. And so my whole thing is, if you're just handing money, it doesn't solve anything. But train people, help people get through this stuff.
Yes.
Pay for it. I have no problem paying taxes to do that shit.
No,
but when someone just says, I'm just going to give money to this and this and this, then I go, okay, well, hold on. That's my tax money. What are you doing?
Because the government doesn't care, because, of course, it's just some guy who owns some company that's collecting a check from the government to either print those checks out or process these things or the cards or whatever case to keep track of things. The biggest misconception is people keep thinking people say, I don't want bigger government, right? Your government doesn't really grow. Like the government doesn't turn around in most cases and hire a whole bunch more government employees. No, they pay some private corporation to thing. When people keep thinking like most of the times it just started happening, the military got a well overdue raise. But most of the time, every year when we increased the budget of military spending, it wasn't going, it went to benefit our troops with the equipment they got. All it did was that we got more money to go pay private contractors to create and make more stuff for us. Hence why everybody was thinking when we went to Iraq or whatever case, those things were going to stave off and help the economy. No, they don't, because America didn't go into full effect. It was like, yo, we need to pay the American people to go make these things. It was like, no, we have these private companies. We're just giving them more money to go push out more tanks.
Yep.
And whatever the case, like so I see what you're saying in the sense of the government has long ago shifted from the traditional ways of how they've already made that transition.
Yeah.
And so most politicians, not all, I'm sorry, no disrespect to anybody who's a fan of hers, but I think Marjorie Taylor Greene is like one of the dumbest damn people out there. But I also think Bernie Sanders is cuckoo. I also do not rock with AOC. I don't like the Santos guy is nothing but a fraud. I mean, fucking most of you people in politics and House are not but frauds. But the point
they do what they need to get.
Yes, to get elected. They get you hyped up. I hate that now. We weren't going to talk about it, so you don't have to comment. But this is I'm not going to go into.
I don't even know where you're going right now.
You'll see where I'm going with it. because they do, when they talk about the things that they know the hot topic issue buttons to push, they get people think. So I hate when we go talking about what beers to drink and not to drink because of the advertisement choices. See where I'm going with this real quick. People are saying keep the politics out of it. Sexual orientation is not a political thing. It's a choice someone has decided to make in life. The problem is you dumbasses have let these politicians hijack and utilize these social issues to make them seem like they're political issues, and they're not. They're life-altering, changing, different things that are going on amongst the people that we are trying to figure out, and whatever the case. But the minute we let these politicians come in and use you, as they've always done us, they know the hot things to go. They know to go in the South and talk about abortion and guns, and you dumbasses are going to vote for them and not care about none of the other platforms they run on. Or you dumbasses up here and some Democrats are going to tell you that, oh, we're not going to do this and we're not going to do that. And they just tell you what they want to tell you so they can stay in power, because all they care about is staying in power, and they turn regular issues and make you people start calling keeping the politics out of it.
I'm not going to comment, but I think that what I'm going to say now follows up on what you're saying in a way. I actually was coming back from Connecticut last week, and there was an older gentleman sitting next to me, and he was part of it's the Democratic creed,
Mm-hmm.
and he was trying to say how he was taking back things, and he was talking to me. I didn't really initiate the conversation, but I was quiet enough to say, okay, I'll listen. And he was coming in, and he was talking about Ohio, and he said, it's very hard to crack into this state. There's only certain areas you can get. And I said, well, here's something you need to understand about Ohio. And once again, I'm not an expert, but I think this, when you start looking across our country, it's the major metropolitan areas that are Democratic.
Mm-hmm.
When you start getting into the
Rural
areas, it's not.
Right.
It's because so many of the things that happen in major cities do not affect the rural community.
Correct.
They don't see it. They don't understand it. They don't understand. Yeah. So when the government says, I'm going to start supporting this and this and this, and I want your tax money to do it, they don't understand because they don't see it.
Why would I get my tax money?
And then it starts. It's like a pearl. It starts out as a little grain of sand, and it just starts growing and growing and growing, and then it gets there. And that's why Trump was able to get a lot of this, was because for so long we've been told, well, we need to fix these things, but we don't. Rural areas, we don't know what that is. Right. We've never seen it. We don't know gang. We're in Bowling Green. We don't know gangs in Bowling Green. We don't know the first thing about it.
But
we don't see it.
That's the problem. The problem is that same way of thinking does eventually transition over into things that does affect them.
Yeah.
But they've been so conditioned. I don't want to say brainwashed. I'm saying conditioned. No, the condition that they actually go against sometimes their own interests. Even though it benefits them. I've watched people even here, like I pay more in Bowling Green taxes than I do Toledo taxes. Right?
Don't get me started.
So, but I watch it and I'm like, but I watch these people who are like, they're pissed off and they don't want to push through certain school initiatives, right? Or they don't want to pay more in taxes or whatever case. And to me, I'm forever always in favor of whatever it takes to make our education system better. It's an education, and I cannot stress this to people out there enough. Your investment or the taxes you pay, if there's anything you should not have an issue with, is paying into education. If you have a problem with what's going on in school, there are boards and there are ways you can address it and put pressure. But again, we are lazy. We don't want to do the work. We elect somebody, and then we just want to go about our merry lives and not give a fuck.
The other problem that I have, this was. So I was at home during the pandemic. I was working from home, and I had to listen to the kids' lessons while they were at home for the pandemic. Yeah. And
bomb. Your wife is bomb.
She's awesome. But
thank you, Dale.
Part of it was I sit there and listen to these lessons, and I keep thinking, is this what our youth needs to learn? Like, great. And I remember going through high school. I did biology, I did physics, I did chemistry, I did all these things. But what are we going to use? There's no personal finance classes in high school.
No.
They don't teach you
No,
that,
they don't.
you know what? You're going to get a car loan. Here's how this works.
Yeah.
Hey, you're going to get a home loan. This is
They
how
don't
this
teach you
works. By the way, you need to watch out for credit cards because this is how they work.
Right. They don't.
None of it.
No.
None of it, sir. But you know what? I'm going to teach you the better parts of how to dissect the problem. Okay, I get it.
Oh, you are going to a place. You going to a place that you can't come back from. I'm telling you right now. Go ahead. No, I'm agreeing with you.
What are we? We have moved from the. And by the way, as a side comment, why do you think they had so many science fairs and everything else in the 50s and 60s, and you had to do science projects? Do you know why they had that as a stipulation in high schools?
What? We were trying to get
looking for scientists to develop more weapons and everything else.
They wanted
to
to
combat the Soviets.
combat the Soviets. Yes,
Bingo,
so I get it.
bingo.
Yes.
And what did we do? We keep doing it. This isn't around anymore, but we keep doing it.
So wait.
Why?
You get some goddamn place that we needed to go. Excuse my excitement, but
no.
So you're on the right thing. So my thinking is this. There was a point in time, and I can remember, and I'm still in favor of it because I have one in college and one about to go to college. But there was a reason why they pushed super hard college on our kids. And what they did with that was they pulled back money from alternate different type of programs that they used to be in with trades and everything. Because we were in trade, we were big on trades back then. But then you realize that the amount of money in the corporations and other things that have money invested into these schools and what they were trying to push and promote. And when you did those things, so now you're like, yeah, we got all these kids. And now you get all these kids that's graduating and not even working in their degree. Right. And then you turn around and now all of a sudden, what's one of the biggest industries that is suffering right now and struggling to find workers? Trades.
And you know, Penna, you sit up there in Penna. You know, our youngest just got into Penna. He wants to do welding. And I'm like, great, go do it. Because you know what? I talked to somebody, I won't give names just because, you know, podcast, but it's about 6 years ago. This is 6 years ago.
You're better than
this is 6 years. No, I don't. You know, I don't want to unfair. They don't know I'm talking, so I'm not going to. Okay. But it was a plumbing service in town. There's only 3, so you could probably figure it out. But I was talking. I knew the owner and I knew his wife, and we were talking. They were doing some work for me, and he sat there 6 years ago, and he's like, I can't get people to do plumbing, and yeah, you're going to be in a ditch for 2 years. You get your journeyman. He goes, I have to start 6 years. I have to start people out at $35,000, and by the time they get their journeyman, they're sitting at $70,000. And he goes, and then they probably go out and start their own.
What's that called? Outpricing the.
He can't keep people, and so you start talking about these trades. You start talking about all the stuff people don't do anymore. But yet, we're not getting out of it. You still have to do it. So you have to pay someone to do it. And if there's fewer people to pay, we're in a capitalist economy. You got to pay more to get that done.
Gift and curse of capitalism. It's a gift and curse. I'm not a Marxist or socialist person whatsoever because it doesn't matter. All forms of these different things can work, but they all have the number one biggest enemy of them all. It's the human effect. They're all great within the idealism or the concept of them.
Yep.
But the number one key factor is that makes them all fail or creates them all to have problems is that the human element comes in. Greed will always set. If you're a monarchy, there's always going to be, you might have one great king who does right and leads his people the right way, but he had this devilish, retarded ass, no, sorry, excuse my language, this devilish ass backward ass child who was
probably a product of incest.
Product of incest, yeah, probably, who comes along and then wants to make everything about them. And then you go to communism. It works until you have people in leadership start becoming greedy, and then they want to go ahead and take and allocate resources or the funding from resources to this particular group. Or us as people, we can't live in a communist society because we feel like I did more work. I deserve to have, instead of everybody in their house having a brand new car every year, I deserve to have 2 or 3 cars because we want more capitalism. There's always going to be a group that feels like, yo, what we're dealing with now. It's always going to be somebody who feels like I can get more, or I can charge you more, or I can do this and I can outsource, outprice, or just flat out right by. Greed, human greed will always set in and destroy any one of these. What are they? They're called a form of societies, or whatever case, ways of ruling, or whatever case. Sorry, I can't think of the name. Authority, or the systems, or whatever the case. I can't think of the word.
But yeah, and human greed does play a factor. There's always going to be people who want more. They want more. They want more, and you'll never stop.
No,
they'll never stop. They could have everything,
mm-hmm.
and we're just watching Narcos. Pablo Escobar. He had everything,
and he still wanted more.
He couldn't do it. He wanted more.
He wanted more.
He wanted more. But to take that away, there are a lot of people that do capitalism right, and they start small businesses because they're interested, or they have a passion in something. They do it, and it's good.
I guess it does. It sounds. I sound ignorant, and I don't want to ignore what you're saying, because what you're saying is right, and I'm agreeing. There are people who go into it with the best intentions. It's the system itself becomes corrupted, because the people we appoint at the top, eventually greed creeps in.
Yeah.
And I guess that's where I should
That's the hardest part, is keeping. So you can start a business, you can start a company, you can get as many like-minded people as you want in there, and if you start getting bigger and bigger, at a certain point you have to keep bringing more people, because you just can't handle it.
Right.
And the ability to bring in that many people who are same like-minded, that can think the way you do, and that aren't in that manner of just taking money, it becomes harder and harder and harder. Yeah. The more people you let in. It's just like in any personal relationship. You can have this small circle of friends that you let in, and you're like, I feel completely comfortable with these guys. But the more people you let in, the harder it becomes to trust every single person, because there's more motivations going on that you don't know about.
Agreed.
There's more things going on there, and that's how our society is. Now, you could say, I guess the real question would be, what's better, having the ability to do this and talk about it, or not having the ability to do these things? And which society is better, a non-capitalistic or capitalist?
I think
I don't know.
I feel. I'm sorry, I'm off camera. I'm just sitting there to make sure.
Well, we can hear you. You're out there.
I agree with you. I think having there. Who was the guy who said it? He said, "Capitalist is one of the worst forms of government, or forms of thing that we have. The problem is that there's none of the other ones we don't have a better one than it." I can't think of who said it, but was a brilliant theorist or theologist, or whatever the case. And it makes sense. Like, we just don't have nothing better than it. He said, but I think somebody else said the same thing about communism. Communism is one of the best forms of government. The problem is, it's also one of the worst forms of government.
Well, you know what? And I think you hit on it earlier, which is very, very point of the human element. If all of us humans were the same,
yes,
and we had the same ideals, communism would be the best ideal.
Yes.
But we don't. We're all different.
Yes.
Completely different.
Different
thought process,
motives, thought process, religions, beliefs, ideology.
So how do you combat that? How do you say, okay, well, great, I'll bring up my wife and I. She likes clothes. Nothing wrong with it.
She's a sharp dresser.
Oh, she is.
Mm-hmm. Her fit's on point.
I could give two shits. And then she's like, why are you wearing that again? Well, you know what? I really don't care.
So she wouldn't start dressing you when you feel.
But she dresses me. Let's be honest. I would still be married if she didn't dress me. But it's we've been together for 9 years now. It's 9 years. I can't remember. She knows. But there's still those kind of plays, and we're in love and we're together. how can you think about people who don't even know each other getting on the same page? You know, we live together, we do, and we still have these little arguments, whatever. But that's the thing. It's like, how would you get, what is it, 4.5 billion people on this planet to agree on anything? Fuck no. Sorry, did I drop my first F bomb? There's gonna be more.
Wow,
that took a long time for me to drop an F bomb.
Logan Conrad is coming out.
I know he's got a little more liquor in it. But anyhow, you know, so you sit there and you think there's no way we can accommodate 4.5 billion people. Mm-hmm. How do we make it the best for the majority? And is capitalism the best? I don't know. I don't like it.
I mean, there's things to like about social. In theory, socialism is dope. In theory, communism is dope. In theory, capitalism is amazing. In theory, a monarchy would be great if you just continuously get a great leader who was about their people, right?
Mm-hmm. And once again, this can be an argument, but when we look back at our history, mm-hmm. George Washington was the first president, and he understood a lot of this stuff. Now, slave owner, all that other shit. That's a whole different conversation.
But it's like it's taboo. Like who the fuck a man of power back then was?
What he understood was this country and what they revolted against, right or wrong, with his own personal beliefs and what he did, was about not getting a monarchy. Was about having someone who would take some power and step away from the power, and have other people who are elected to take that power and step away from it. And that's what we got. And I'm going to tie this back to your first comment about Trump. That's the thing that scared me the most about Trump. He wouldn't let up the power. You know what? We all have the power. We have the power. We don't have the power.
Yes.
We have the power to turn on your laptop and do
whatever else.
This fucking podcast. That's the power we got.
Right.
And you know what? We can talk. But at the end of the day, those people in Washington, those people that are doing all this stuff, they have the power. And
they don't want to let it go. Hence, they don't want term limits.
Why the fuck? Thank you. Let's go to that. Term limits. Fuck yes. Term limits.
Power. Greed, man. It's power. It's.
Let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
How the fuck can anyone who is 85 years old and still in Congress know what's going on in this country right now? They don't understand this country.
No.
And yet they're legislating out there.
Yes.
And I get it. You got experience. But at the same time, you know what? There needs to be some new blood. And that's why, you know what? For one thing, to say AOC and those guys coming in there, they're younger. I like that. I don't necessarily agree with their political views, but younger people need to be in there because this shit's moving so fast, technology and everything else. We need younger people to understand it.
I think
to get in there.
These same people are, because they're still going to hold on to their power, so they're still holding on to the old power structure that keep them in power, and they're keeping the U.S. Stagnant. They're slowing down our progress to becoming a leader or our ability to grow.
And to grow, to grow as far as, let's be honest, this is a fucking global world. That's where we're at right now.
Yeah.
The shit you can get from here to there in less than a day.
So why do we have I think
I know where you're going.
Why do we have an issue with where everybody's like, yo, we need to stop globalization, or we need to stop it's a word, you know.
Globalization's a word. Do you know why? Because who is global? Who is doing the globalization?
Is it the left?
Corporations.
We're going
to go back to corporations. I work for them. I don't think they're bad. Don't get me wrong. I don't think corporations are necessarily bad.
I don't work for a corporation. But I work for a company that pays a lot of corporations. Well, not a company, but a place where they pay off a lot of corporations. Okay. But,
and the corporations aren't necessarily bad, but that's the globalization. That's took over globalization, was the corporations. And so when you get
world monopolies.
There's world monopolies, yes there are, but this is where the United Nations, they got to figure this out. When they figure out that this is one, that's when the power's coming. It's one.
Okay, so
you know what? I don't care what the color of your skin is. I don't care what the color of my skin is. We all have blood in us. Mm-hmm. We all have hearts.
Yep.
We all have brains. Yep. It doesn't matter. We're one. And when they figure that out and they start figuring out how to dictate to everyone and say, okay, guys, let's get over this.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody needs to eat. Everybody needs healthcare. Everybody needs. I don't know what the structure of that is, but that is when this thing will happen. When this thing will work. Right now, we're pitting each other against each other, just for power.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, so
Sorry,
no.
Way too.
No. I love it. That's what we're here for. I thought we did a lot of it, but I also want to, and I find it, bro. I love talking to you. We definitely want to do this more. I want to go to Star Wars.
Yes, thank you. By the way, you need the Star Wars glasses. So
Star Wars. Wait.
We're drinking the beer.
I got Yoda on mine.
I do have Darth Vader. Sorry, personal favorite.
Man, I love. So, if you were to ask me to, I love The Mandalorian, right? I love that show.
Oh, yes.
You got your undershirt? Show it.
This is the way.
Yes, bro. We need to do next season. We gonna make a show. We're gonna do a show and a reaction video. Yes, we can do a show and reaction videos. Yeah. So you wouldn't have to wait till next season of Mandalorian. We can do it for. We can set it up for Ahsoka's show when that comes. But we'll have everything and we want to do it, and then we'll set a night like after it's done or whatever we'll do it, and then we can do a review on the episode.
I know when I'm asking my wife to wear a headgear like Ahsoka, is that creepy?
Yeah. Man, hey, whatever is your fetish. Whatever is your fetish. As long as it's Ahsoka's and not Jar Jar Binks. If it had been Jar Jar Binks, I'd have
Hold on. But you know that Jar Jar Binks was the Jedi in The Mandalorian. The last one that saved Grogu? Mm-hmm. That was Jar Jar Binks. The actor played Jar Jar Binks.
Oh, the dude. Yes. I've heard that. That's who played Jar.
Yes.
Wait.
He got to be a Jedi.
Wait. This is going to sound crazy. It's scary to me. Listen.
She's commenting on the
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait. So is that in case the redemption by letting the one who saved Grogu be the black guy for all the black people crying and fussing about the racist thing about Jar Jar Binks and feeling that way? That was, y'all know it's stupid. I know it's just
characters I've
ever seen.
Yeah, I don't know the racist part of that.
I don't think I took it that way, but so I don't know. Maybe they fed into the hype. Maybe they fed into protest, because a lot of times they make it worse for themselves and they feed into. If you didn't come out with that intention or whatever case, and then you feed into it by trying to correct it, and then it makes it worse.
Yeah. I don't know if that was the intent.
I don't think so, but I had to be an asshole.
No.
Because I like being an asshole. I think it's part of it.
I just always liked, as Samuel Jackson got in there, and he talked to George Lucas, and he's like, "Look, I'll go in it, but I gotta have my own colored lightsaber." Well, what color you want? Purple. That dude told him, "Look, he's the only one that's purple lightsaber." And
there's theories and the whole wars behind that.
You don't know why? Because he's a bad motherfucker.
Samuel Jackson.
I'm gonna go right back to.
I'm sick and tired of these motherfucking snakes on this motherfucking plane.
I always go back to Pulp Fiction. Which ball is short? Someone says bad motherfucker. Right?
Samuel Jackson is a fucking legend. He's one of a kind. There's certain actors. I can give a fuck what their race is, because they just, if you a bad motherfucker as an actor, you just a bad. Like, I'm gonna be honest here. I'm gonna tell you something, and don't laugh at me. Okay?
Oh, you can't say that.
No, don't laugh. You probably laugh. Okay, and it's okay. I'm a man, and I stand on mine. My favorite movie, and this is turning left, but it's still on it. My favorite movie is The Notebook.
Okay.
Okay. I watch it, and every time I watch it, no matter how many times I watched it, I always fucking cry because I'm like, man, he fought so hard to get back to her, and then she didn't realize it. And these women don't be realizing when we fucking love them, and then when she realized, now she want to come run back, and now she didn't cut me off because I done had this little freaky hoe on the side that was willing to do everything, and I didn't have to commit. She was just cool, just being my side piece and giving me the motherfucking space and time I needed. But no, she won't come back in my life. Now I got to commit to her and kick the one little chick that was down to do whatever to the side. That's my take on it. I know it's a fucked up take of the Notebook, but that was my take on it. I'm like, and don't get me wrong, I want to die next to the person I love. Yeah, it was because it was that deep. Because he was like, yo, I fought for this chick. I made a fool of myself. I went out for her. And then she was gonna marry this other dude, and I'm moving on with my life. That's what we do as men. We like, all right, we finally got it together. He went from being stranger danger to figuring it out. He went and he was sitting there chilling. He had this one chick that was just happy to come over. He could serve her the D when he wanted to serve her the D. And then she went back to her house and he chilled in his crib. And then all of a sudden, look who pulls up like, oh my God, Noah. Oh my God, I love you. My mom still get married, but I'm gonna give you some ass. And then you know where my heart is, woman. And then you sit there and you give me some ass, and now I'm trapped. Now I'm trapped because my emotions. I had this one woman who wanted to be in a relationship, but she respected my motherfucking mind.
I don't.
Am I reading? I'm probably reading too much into it. But
you know what? If you love the movie that much, then go with it.
Thank you. See, that's why you my motherfucker.
I don't. I don't know the Notebook that much. I tell you, a movie I saw that I always loved growing up, Regarding Henry.
Wait.
And Harrison Ford in it, and Annette Bening, and he was a lawyer. He was an asshole, and he got shot in the head out of robbery. I'm trying to remember the actor. It was John Leguizamo who played it. I can't remember, but shot him in the head, and then he lived, came out, and he was a nice person, but he had no clue who his family was. He had to learn everything back again.
So did he become a better person because he had to learn his family?
He was a much better person.
What type of saying is that then? That's some fucked up shit. A motherfucker gotta lose his mind to be a good person.
Fucked up. I
like Benjamin Button. Does that make me fucked up?
I did like it, but it was weird.
Like I kind of want it that way. I like rather be old and wrinkled and shit, and then I grow up. Like I come into my handsome, sexy beast mode, and then I just get younger and younger and younger. Would you rather get younger, or get older like we're doing now? Like you feel better the longer you've been here.
Oh, couldn't live through it.
Like as you grow older, you become. Look at it this way, and this is gonna sound fucked up, but your wife's right here, but she understands it. But like, yo, normally by the time you realize how to get the hot chicks, right, and everything else, you either settle down and marry, and you're too tired to go do all that bullshit, or you're just old and too tired to go do all the bullshit. But you understand women and how to deal with them and how to get them, right? As you grow older.
You're talking.
Okay. But, I mean, okay. Oh, well, shit happens. Pimps fuck up too. But it's a great thing.
Well, you know what?
It ain't easy. So I say that to say, if it's reversed, so you like get off. Yeah, now you sit there and it's like, yo, like the younger you get, you understood women and everything, but the younger you get, the more into your sexual drive, but you still already have the knowledge of understanding women and how to deal with them and how to work with them and how to understand them in your favor.
Now I'm following. They probably have sexual diseases, and I get would fall.
Probably because now you know.
I would probably try to fuck everything.
Yes, no one. Listen, it's everybody, even women. I'm sure women. She off camera, but I know she talked about like if you know then what you know now, you would have spent your 20s and everything else like a lot more different. You'd be like shit. Now imagine if you had. It was the reverse. So you getting younger and even coming more and more into your prime.
Yeah, that is an interesting concept. What I didn't know is on Benjamin Button, but now that you bring it up, if you're
There's
old and then you get younger, does like it work in reverse with Viagra? Like if you're old and come back,
So
you get hard then, and then you don't get hard now.
No. Like you get more hard. So like yes. So
Okay.
if you're older, yeah. So it's reverse.
It's in reverse.
So you come into the thing, you're probably like, I don't know. Let's say you start from 100 and back down. So when you get to, what was it, 82? No, 78. 18 plus 78, 78 plus whatever the fuck it is, minus 100 minus 18. 82. So you're 82 years old. Now you're 18 years old. You got to start popping Viagra. But then you stop needing it as you get younger and younger and younger.
You know what? You give me off.
Some real shit. This is some deep shit.
I don't know. I'm like, man.
Okay, wait. We got to go back to Star Wars, okay? Because I don't know how we were talking about movies and we lost track of Star Wars. But it's cool. It's our show. We do what the hell we want to do. Okay, so the Ahsoka trailer.
Yeah. Oh, that's why I busted up. I started talking about Ahsoka. The Ahsoka trailer. I mean, I love that Grand Admiral Thrawn's come back in. I like seeing, the Mandalorian come back in. I can't remember the green chick with the ears. Hey, Dula or something.
Yeah, whatever.
No. I mean, I can't wait to see Ezra Bridger. I cannot wait to see him come back in because he took off with those whales at the end of the Rebels that could do the light speed. So it'll be completely different with the light.
It ties a lot of things. Ahsoka ties a lot of things. Yeah.
And I, you know what? I'll admit this. I haven't seen all the Clone Wars cartoons.
I've been watching them.
I have started watching them, but I haven't seen them all. And so I know Ahsoka, and I've seen her in a lot of things. But the other thing they hinted about was that if you've seen Rebels, the Worlds Without Time, where Ezra pulled her out when she was fighting Darth Vader, and it looks like Ahsoka might be in the live action series.
Ooh.
She like that new Sith. It looks like he's in the World Without Time.
You ever watch a show on YouTube where they're breaking down like all these things with their tell their history? Yeah. And they tell the history of certain Sith Lords. Yeah. I'm a nerd too. Like, listen, I
love it.
I'm like the biggest sports guy in the world, but at the same time, I'm like super nerd. Like, I'm a guy who's sitting there watching Lord of the Rings or all these other things, then going back and listening to like tapes about the whole history and the things that's going on. I'm not afraid to say I still have an imagination.
But you know what? I always liked with her. She started watching Game of Thrones with me. And
did you get hooked?
She got hooked. But here's the thing. I had one of the first 10,000 copies of the original book. And I got it on a bargain rack, and it has a sticker that says $4.98.
That's crazy.
That fucking cover for $700. I got into it in the 90s. My brother and my dad got into it because we read constantly. And we saw these and we started reading them. And I got all the books, but I still have this. It's the original fucking 10,000 cover. And it says bargain book $4.98.
Okay, so let me ask you this.
I die. I just look at it, I go laughing. But when we started watching, I mean, we got the kids into it, and they started loving it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those, it's like, holy
It's one of those series that even my stepdad was never into that type of stuff. Yeah. And I got him to watch. And I'm going to ask her because for me, this is the same scene for me that got me into it. It let me know it was different when Jon Snow and his dad got beheaded.
When Ned Stark got beheaded?
Ned Stark got beheaded. That's when I was main character. Yes, and you're like, wait, what the fuck? Like, this is different. Like, anybody could die. So then you start realizing anybody could die. And it don't matter if they've been 3 seasons in, season 4, episode 6, this motherfucker might be gone.
And I will tell you this: if you're not a reader, I would encourage you to buy the books and read the books because they're not the same.
They're not the same. No, I've listened to the audiobooks when they get read, and I learn about the whole history and the
Ghost and Jon Snow are so much more. You know, Jon Snow is a huge part of Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Not huge, but Ghost is such a huge part.
The wolves,
yeah,
the wolves,
the final wolf.
Yeah,
they're all huge part, and they don't have it in the show.
Yeah,
and it's crazy.
If that's my biggest complaint, that's probably my biggest complaint. But that's only because I had the fortune of going back.
Yeah,
it grew so big, it kind of hurt itself because it made people go read the books.
Oh, yeah.
But then when you read the books, you're like, wait a minute, they didn't do that.
Right. But you know what? I will say the books they've done a good job with the books. My problem is George R.R. Martin has not finished this book.
No.
And I had another series that I started watching or I started reading at the same time as this. And it was called the oh my God, I just went completely blank. What was the series that came out on Prime that we started watching? Wheel of Time.
Wheel of Time. I watched that. I watched Wheel of Time.
I have all 15 books sitting in there.
Damn.
15 fucking books. And they did a good job on that show. But these books are unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable in the detail they give. And it was just, you know, what do you say? It's a fantasy. I get to go do something else. You
get to go when you read, we're old enough to where
reading is a lost fundamental.
Reading is a lost fundamental, but reading played one of our biggest things we had was imagination.
Yeah.
And your imagination, it's why we're so stagnant right now with growth and everything, because we don't give our kids a chance to imagine, to think of different things. And when they think of these different things or how to do these different things, that sparks creativity. Yeah. Our imagination for us sparked creativity. It made us become problem solvers. And we were able to sit there and say, yo, we used to want to play with guns if we watch Rambo, right? And so we go get sticks. Yeah, so we go get sticks. But then we start saying, all the stick is too big. So then we go and break the stick down. And then we go get a log because we got to have the bigger gun. Like it's
like from Predator.
Yes, from Predator. Our imagination was, I loved it. Our imagination was dope. I used to think, and people thought they were nerds then, but I used to think it was cool. I used to have some older cousins, and I used to be so jealous because I was too young and they wouldn't let me play, and I'd be so pissed off. But they sit around the table with the dice and the board game, and they play Dungeons and Dragons, all that stuff. And I'd be like, I didn't think of it as nerdy then. I thought it was like the coolest shit ever, and I used to be mad that they wouldn't let me play. I'd be like, why can't I play? Like, this is cool. Like, and they'd be there for hours, and I'd be like sitting there like, I want to play so bad.
I have never played Dungeons and Dragons.
Me neither. I still want to play. I got a guy I work with, and he's invited me because they still have it. I'm gonna hit you up, and we can go. We can go.
I'm gonna try this one time. I don't know. I watch Big Bang Theory. They play Dungeons and Dragons all the time. They do that shit all the time.
I want to get my nerd on. I'm a nerd. I want to get my nerd on. I want to go play Dungeons and Dragons. I want to go. He said these motherfuckers go hard at it. Like they put serious. They're serious.
Yeah, I sit there. I played with the kids, different Monopoly type. We had Boxeropoly. We had Monopoly. When I was a kid, it was Monopoly. Mm-hmm. And I am ruthless.
Oh, I do my kids so dirty. I be taking their property. I be making, because listen, if I play and we don't establish certain rules, I'm motherfucking maniacal. Like I'll be like, start making side deals with motherfucker. But like, look, I'll do this for you. You do this for me.
You know what? I learned a valuable lesson early on, and no one wants to do it. But for some reason, it works for me. I buy a fucking Mediterranean and Baltic.
Yep.
The very two. And people hit that shit all the time. And it's not worth that much, but you know what? Fucking cash.
Mm-hmm. This is what I do.
My friend says, you have to pay rent, but I'll take your property.
I'll take your property. Or how about this? I'll let you go this time. If the next 2 times When I land on your spot, I don't have to pay you. And they were like, okay. And I was like, there we go. And then my kids get so mad. They were like, man, that ain't fair. You can't do this. And says who?
You can't see my wife. She is covering her face because she exactly knows. That's how I
I'm like, scary money don't. I tell my kids when we playing, I'll be kicking their ass. If scary money don't make no money, if they ever go broke, I'm going to take your money.
You gotta be aggressive.
You got to be. Like, I just, it's Monopoly. I can be a beast in the asshole Monopoly. Like, I play to win.
Let's do this shit. I want to play your Monopoly.
Yes. And your wife was like, no, hell no. Like,
we're gonna need a lot more beer.
yes, I'm okay with that. So, as we reach, we on a long podcast. That's crazy.
I'm sorry.
No, it's a good thing. We just been laughing and joking and talking shit. It's our podcast. We can do what we want to do.
Whatever you want to do, I'm good. But I got nowhere to be tonight. Although if we keep drinking like this, it may end up prematurely.
Well, if you pass out,
I'll put my head down so you can at least see me. See my head.
We'll stop before you. So, back to Star Wars before we wrap this up. Yeah. We're gonna wrap it up. We don't want to go over 2 hours. That's great.
All right, Star Wars. I want to ask questions.
Go ahead.
Star Wars. Darth Vader. Bad character. I want to say through the whole thing, once you understand the whole trip, bad character or good character?
A good character, just a victim of fucking circumstances. Misunderstood and lost. And because I felt like, how about this? Darth Vader came along because the Jedi's dropped the ball.
I agree. I think that they became complacent, as we talked about. And when they heard about the prophecy, well, here's the thing, are you a fan of the Dune series?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. We're going to have a whole nother fucking complex.
Us, brother.
What the hell? Dude, I have. Anyhow, yes. Just like Muad'Dib got caught in his own prophecy.
Yes.
They got caught in their prophecies.
Yes.
They didn't understand the prophecy was said, but you don't know how it's going to work out.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, who was the prophecy? So who was the prophecy about? There's a question.
I don't think it was really about.
It's about anything.
No, it wasn't about anything. It was about.
Say it. I know you want to say it.
I want to say Luke, but I don't. No, it wasn't Luke.
Who was it about?
No, it wasn't. What's his face?
It's about Rey. She is the balance of the Force because she came from the dark, Palpatine, and she turned to the light. She is the prophecy of the Force, but it could never have happened had they not followed all the steps through that.
Yes, only because I want to agree with you. Only because they, writing wise, which this maybe makes a different argument. Writing wise, they never did a good job of actually showcasing. They always made Vader powerful, but they never showcased or let him reach that potential for us ever to see it. So if that was the intention, and it was really for somebody else to come along later on to be Rey, cool. But Annie showcased so much power, and he got pushed to the dark side because of the Jedi. The only reason he went dark is because of the Jedi, because they were so afraid of what he could become, is that they limited him. And in the fact of limiting him, that they pushed him to where he could be manipulated by Palpatine.
And I think, to add on to that, it wasn't just that they pushed him. Their rules became so rigid about training kids with a certain age. And you know what? I'm going to tie this back to mental health. We're going to go all the way fucking back to the front of it. Mental health of these kids that are becoming Jedi. They didn't want to deal with anything other but kids they could shape. And when a kid came in who had already got some parental advice or whatever, they didn't know how to deal with him.
Yeah.
And so they tried to keep him in the strict structure of the Jedi that it ended up causing him to move towards Palpatine, who was by the way, a powerful Sith who manipulated. He was very good at manipulation. And they didn't know how to deal with that either.
No,
and they didn't know how to deal with any of it. And so
but the Force, here's the crazy part.
Balance.
The Force is about balance, right? And wait, this is gonna sound crazy.
No, throw it on.
I always looked at the Force like, I'll take another one. Yeah. The Force like religion, right? I can give please and thank you.
Let's talk about something else after that.
Okay.
Force and religion.
Force and religion. It was like people don't understand. Like God is good, but God is also bad. He is the creator of all. Okay, and so the Force, look at it like you have Jesus here. In order to create balance, I need to have the devil. Okay, not just the way it is. Now here's the problem is where we'll lose ourselves and be mad at the Force and everything is that we want to understand the Force in the way we do, just like we want to understand God in the way we do. We can't, because God doesn't look at it as good and evil. It's just the will and the way to help keep create and keep balance. So there is no good or evil with God. It is just the necessary things that take place to achieve whatever was the precursor or the end goal or end game that was set forth.
And so you start talking about the Force, and they always talk about balance. And the Jedi talked about balance, but what they weren't recognizing the balance. So if there's all these Jedi out there and there's balance, then there must be all these Sith. And if there's not all these Sith, what happens? One Sith becomes extremely powerful.
And they were some extreme.
And that's what they didn't get. Yep. They didn't follow their own creed. They didn't understand the Force enough to understand all the ways.
There were Sith. From the lore, there were a lot of Sith that were borderline. Almost, you could have had them become good guys.
Yeah.
That were out there that could have been pushed over to becoming good guys, but because of how the Jedi were and their thing, compared to the fact that it was so easy for a lot of powerful Jedi to become not Sith, but on the dark side, because they were more understanding of their plight, or more sympathetic, or more able to pull them over and like, yo, you're not an outcast because you feel.
Yeah, you feel. You have emotions. You feel, and a part of it is one of the things that I always found interesting was they ignored. They were so concerned about power because the Force could give you power, and if you go back, if you start looking at all the old Republic stuff, and I can't even think of his name now, but he had 2 sons. That he lived as a ghost and he inhabited people, but
that's what's his face. Not the one who got who trained Palpatine.
No, the other dude way before.
Wait.
What they concerned themselves with, someone trying to take absolute power.
That's why they always had to rule it too.
And by doing that, the Jedi ignored that there's gray areas. There's gray areas, and should I use some power here to stop this? Well, no, that's against.
I guess you need a story to tell, so you can't have the good guys have it all figured out.
So let me.
The good guys have to have flaws in order for the bad guys to succeed.
And I get it, but there's. Let's talk real life. Let's talk movies. Movies, there's always got to be good and bad.
Yes.
And in real life, there's a one person who could be good and bad.
Yes.
And in both, we navigate through all that. And so when you look at there's difficult parts with Rey and those guys in the last Star Wars movies, but when she destroyed the transport ship with her lightning and found out, that that was bad, was she a bad person, or did she just let emotions take over?
She just let emotions take over, and then you're supposed to learn how to hone that to create again. That's a better thing. And so, yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. So it was something else you said you wanted to bring up.
Oh shit! I forgot.
Religion.
Oh,
Of course.
I wrote an actual paper in college that talked. This, of course, this is 95. Some older than I look, but about the religion aspect of what George Lucas did with whether it was samurai, Buddhism, and all this. I mean, he really combined a lot of religions into
I watched an interview with him saying.
And it was, I wrote this whole paper in college, and it was one of the best papers I've ever written, to be honest. And it's just amazing when you look at the whole Star Wars and you really dissect what was going on. There's a lot of our society that's baked into that that you don't realize. You think, oh, it's a fun movie. There's lightsabers, there's force, but there's a lot of hidden meanings in a lot of that stuff going on. I always found that interesting that a lot of people didn't get that.
We don't, because we tend to think of everything as A or B, good and evil, whatever the case. What I've learned is that you can. It's all up into interpretation, right?
Oh,
okay. So, in the beginning, there's and please, people watching, hear me. Pay attention to what I'm saying. There can be a person who will do horrible things to try to achieve something good for what they believe in or the people that they believe in. And they're just willing to go that extra step. And to those who become victims or in the way of the goal they're trying to achieve, this person can seem like a demon. I.e., in the beginning, the reason that Hitler was able to achieve and keep the power he had is because, and I have Jewish friends, no disrespect to them, but there were organizations, companies, and different tactics used by those who had power, and the Jewish people had a lot of power over there in Germany, and different tactics and things they did and manipulated to control or to keep power that they were guilty of. I can't make this shit up. Just go back and read your history. That made it easy for the German people to want to turn against them or to already have these feelings about them at that time. Not justifying Hitler. What I'm sitting there saying is Hitler utilized that as a tool to rally support, and it got easier to get behind him. So that is the reason why he became so successful, because he truly made the German people feel that he was there, and it was about being there in the support of his people in his country, whether it was getting more resources, like you said, because he always felt the West was a rival, and he wanted to make sure that he sat their thing. So when he went into Polish and whatnot, or everywhere else, it was about, not only do they have oil, but they have other resources, like a lot more farmland that we can go ahead and take. So he went from a hero to, therefore, he achieved his first initial goal. Had he not been greedy, he'd have pulled it off, because the U.S. and the rest of the world left him the hell alone, didn't interfere, everything else. Had he not been greedy and wanted more, he would have went down almost like he was some damn hero.
Well, I'm gonna comment on in more depth on that. If you've ever read Mein Kampf, which I have, he laid out everything he was gonna do. So the world should not have been surprised. He put it in a book well before him. But you got to also think about the time and space. They were in the middle of the Great Depression. His people couldn't get food. The wire mark was going at inflation. Unbelievable.
Yes.
He put everyone back to work. He did all these projects. He started doing the military. He got everything back the way it was before. So if you're in a country and you're starving and you have no sense of pride, you have no national unity, and somebody does this, you say,
excuse me,
holy shit, I'm going to follow this guy.
Yes.
Now, they didn't know his whole agenda.
No, they didn't.
They didn't. But when you say, were the German people evil? No, they weren't evil.
No.
They were misguided, because
and by
he gave them great stuff first. And then started the other stuff.
Yes.
And
so
by
that time it was too late, because even they couldn't do nothing. Even they almost became damn prisoners of the moment.
But then he had once again, he had the communication down, so they never even knew the bad shit. And so you you always got to be careful. Like, he did the right things at the first to get them back their pride, to get them fed again, to do everything else. Didn't turn out the way he should have done it, but you know, to your point, you always got to be careful of the situation. What's going on, and is someone helping you? Because they could be coming with good intentions at 1st, and then boom, they're going to put their agenda down, and then by that point you may be committed.
Yes,
maybe too committed.
You're already committed.
Yeah.
You're in. So it's dope, and I think that's a dope conversation we have to definitely continue. So before we end this podcast, are there any people, anything, or whatever case you want to give a shout out to, or whatever the case, something like that?
No, I'm just thrilled. It's the first time I've ever done this, so I'm a little.
Man, you're natural, bro.
No, I'm not. I'm not. I don't know where to look. I don't know where to keep my hands. You know, I'm like
What am I doing? Look, I just look both. Luckily, I got my sunglasses on, so even when I'm looking down when I'm not supposed to, you can't tell.
I haven't been looking at the camera, so it's
I want to AAA Productions, aka Truth Entertainment Films. Shout out Pussy Talks Podcast. Shout out Deep Throat Conversations Podcast. Shout out It's a Hard Not Life Podcast. AAA Podcast, and Bucket Naked. Shout out Bucket Naked Podcast. We're gonna start doing more Bucket Naked podcasts because it's a lot of people that be having a lot of things that I just talk about. Yeah. I want to thank Logan Conrad for being a guest, and I promise y'all, because he's very informative, but he's also real and entertaining. You were natural, brother. Like you can never tell. You would never be able to tell this is your first podcast.
It's more a testament to you.
People give me compliments, so I make people comfortable and easy, whatever case it is. But no, you're a natural. And I'm gonna work very hard to get him on more and get him talking more, because he has a wealth of knowledge. He's just funny and smart, and he even talks about smart things in a very entertaining way. I want to thank him for his hospitality. He's invited me into his home. His beautiful wife that's been serving us beer in these amazing Star Wars glasses. May the force be with you, bitches. And even some of that was some bomb ass bourbon, Cincinnati bourbon. But I want to thank him for the hospitality and the chance to go ahead and do this. And I promise you'll work my ass off so we can get more. I'm gonna get her on the podcast too, just so
you'll hear the truth, not from me, but you'll hear the truth.
So that's Mrs. Logan Conrad. I don't know, I'm quite sure that's not what she wants to go by, but Mrs. Conrad. But y'all, I want to thank y'all. God bless y'all. Please check us out on YouTube. We're on Spotify. We're on YouTube. We're on Amazon. We're on Apple. We're on I'm like on almost every platform where you can reach this and hear this or watch this. So God bless y'all. Thank y'all, and good night.
Thank you.